Just checking. I might move this up a little bit after the intro. In tonight's video, as you can tell, we have a return to the Let's Not Meet Reddit page. Honestly, I don't think it was that long ago since we last did one of these, but I quite frankly can't get enough reading these, and I think you guys really enjoy them as well, so we're back, and we've got plenty more to go through. I've, as you can tell, gone for a little bit of a different lighting setup today. No idea why. I've got some candles lit next to me. I've got my red light on very, very low, and I've got my main ring light on very low as well, so kind of wanted to create a bit of like a more sinister but chilled out vibe, I guess. If you don't like it, let me know, and I won't do it again. I probably won't do it again anyway, or tell me if you love it, and if it helps the video, then wonderful. And apologies for the boxes to the left of me, on my right, your right, my left. Essentially, I'm in the process of renovating my cupboard space, which has been neglected since I moved into the house. I'm turning it into something pretty cool, so there's stuff everywhere at the minute. But you didn't come for that. You came for some scary, real-life stories, and a lot of these, I think all of them are NSFW as well. I think they're always 18 rated, but I might just put that in the title for clicks. But anyways, get nice and cozy, get comfy, get ready to be relaxed and scared at the same time. And without further ado, let's get into the stories. Okay, so our first story is titled, Why I'm Scared of Homeless People. To clarify, I'm a 16-year-old female who lives in a very, very small town, and this happened 3 months ago. Every morning I would go out to our yard and drink coffee and watch the sunrise, and one morning a guy with dirty brown hair and a dirty face came walking by. He waved at me while I sat there, and of course I didn't want to be rude, so I of course waved back. This continued for about 3 weeks, until one afternoon while I was playing with my dogs outside and saw him just standing there, watching me. Of course I waved, but I never saw him this time of day. He waved and then just walked away. I didn't think much of it because I was stupid. Then, the morning I'll never forget, ever. I was sitting outside, and as always he walked by, but as I waved at him he came to my gate. I froze. He started small talk, and slowly I started to get up, scared. He told me to wait, and I stupidly waited. My dog started barking at him, and he said very agitated, "Your dogs are very mean." When I tried to get in, they wanted to bite me. I stood there and wanted to cry. Then he told me I'd rather stay safe and keep by my pets. He then proceeded to pull out a dead rat from his pocket. I ran away, and since then I've never went outside during those times. So creepy homeless guy, let's not meet ever again. God. Next one is titled Burglar in a Halloween Mask. I've been lurking on this sub for a while and enjoy reading people's experiences. While perusing, I recalled a story of my own from my childhood I'd mostly forgotten. Here it is. My parents divorced when I was 4 or 5 years old. During and after the divorce, my brother, let's call him Chris, my mom and I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment townhouse. Now this is not the nice townhouse you may imagine. It wasn't a complete shithole per se, but they were older, built in the 60s, this is in the 1990s, and in a rougher part of town. Something a single mother with 2 kids could swing. The layout of the apartment is important to the story so bear with me. When you walk in the front door, the kitchen is immediately to your left and there's a short entrance hallway in front of you. The kitchen has an open countertop area that looks into a dining spot for a table and a split level living room / den area that also had glass sliding doors leading to the backyard. No fence or privacy, where there was a rather sad and sparse playground there. In the hallway entrance again, on the right is a staircase leading up to my mum's and my brother's rooms. One day after school, my brother and I are out playing in the backyard on the playground, doing our kid stuff, when my mum told us she wanted to go check the mail. The mailboxes of the apartments are located at the front entrance, which is on the opposite side of the complex from us. Naturally, me being 5 and Chris 9, my mum didn't want to leave us alone, especially since it was dark outside. We came inside and got ready to leave. On the way out, I remember my mum asking Chris if he had closed and locked the sliding glass door. Chris said he had. Cut to, we're back from the mail room. It's maybe been 20 to 30 minutes. It's hard to recall fully, but my mum unlocks the apartment door. I'm lingering in the car for some reason or other. Chris doesn't notice I'm not in the apartment yet, and on the stairs leading to the bedrooms on the right, he sees someone's feet disappear at the top of the landing, as if someone were running to hide. Thinking they're mine, he doesn't think anything's off. Chris goes to the kitchen and I actually go upstairs directly into our bedroom to get ready for the bed / bath in the bathroom. My mum is at the table in the dining area near the split level living area downstairs, while I'm completely clueless getting ready for bed in the bathroom. Chris from downstairs keeps hearing someone walking around in Mum's bedroom. Now, I had a bad habit when I was this age of going through people's stuff. Not maliciously, I was barely 5, just curiosity. And Chris, thinking I'm being a nosy bastard going through all of our mum's jewellery, etc., runs upstairs to catch me in the act and get me in trouble. Chris runs up the stairs, sprints across the hall to my mum's bedroom and throws himself stomach first on the bed. When he looks up, he sees a tall, slender man with a bright green Goblin latex Halloween mask on and is holding a large knife he has swiped from the kitchen. My brother sits silently in shock as the man in the Goblin mask raises one finger to the mouth, indicating for him to be quiet. And in true form from my brother, he screamed bloody murder for our mum. Now, I have heard things going on, but I have no idea and I'm not aware of what's happening. I've gotten into my big, oversized sleep shirt and I'm going downstairs to have a glass of milk before bed. When Chris screamed, the man ran downstairs and encountered my mum, who immediately jumped into action. Our baseball gear was in the living room and my mum grabbed a bat and started fighting this man in our house, while he is taking swipes at her with the knife. I first notice what's happening when I have come downstairs to the kitchen, pulled up a step stool to reach the counter and to pour a glass of milk, and that's when I see over the bar the guy push my mum up the steps into the split-level living room, landing on her back. She starts swinging the bat wildly, trying to make any contact with it, and she does. I'm glued to this image, truly frozen in place. Not scared, just so young that you can't fully process what you're seeing. The man finally runs towards the front door, which is right by the kitchen. I mid-pour in my glass of milk, frozen, milk continuing to spill out all over the counter and floor. He stops remember what happened after that, but all the parts I've relayed are very clear to me. Moral: lock your doors, and don't just assume you did. And dear man in the Goblin mask, let's not meet again. That's crazy. That is literally terrifying. I wonder what his game was though, because not to be super dark, if he wanted to just kill the family, he'd have surely just killed the kid upstairs. But fair play to the mum. She sounds like she literally didn't hesitate one bit and just started trying to beat the shit out of this guy. But that is literally terrifying, and the thing that would scare me was I would just assume he'd come back, like out of damaged pride or whatever. Like, I would just assume that he was going to come back for round 2. But yeah, that's grim. Lock your doors. This next account is titled, "Just had the creepiest experience of my life while camping." I discovered this sub while with my friend Julia, who was with me as I'm typing this out, because we just got back from a camping trip where we experienced the scariest thing either of us has ever experienced. So Julia and I are both women in our early 20s, and we were out camping in a remote area of Montana that isn't super popular, but it's still fairly popular amongst locals who camp a lot like we do. Which meant it wasn't super unusual when we saw a group of 3 guys who looked to be a little older than us drive past our camp about an hour after we set up our chairs and table. We just assumed they were searching for a good spot to camp. But when the car was still in our sight through the trees, we saw it turn around, and as it was driving back, we both noticed one of the guys sticking his phone out the window and seemed to be recording us. Both of us thought it was really weird, and I walked a bit closer to take a picture of their license plate as a safety measure. But when I got closer, I saw that the back plate had all the numbers covered with black paint. Julia and I both got bad vibes from this, but both of us are aware that men are creeps towards women all the time, and both of us are prepared with bear spray, because Montana is grizzly bear country, and we decided it wasn't a weird enough interaction to pack our stuff and find a different spot. We just decided to put an empty tent outside and sleep in my car instead, to trick people into thinking we were sleeping in the tent if they tried to attack us. That's smart. Later that night, when both of us were asleep in my car, we heard branches rustling and snapping outside by the empty tent, despite the fact that it wasn't windy. Originally, we assumed it was a bear trying to climb up to the bear hang with our food and scented hygiene products. Then we heard male voices outside, and I lifted my head up to the window and saw the same car that passed us earlier. I got off the air mattress on top of the back row of seats that we put down to make an area for us to sleep, and locked the doors individually so my car wouldn't make a beeping noise. Again, super smart. Julia and I stayed still and hoped that the men would leave. For a while we heard them talking, but it was hard to make out what they said from inside the car. We heard more rustling and branches snapping, which made us think they were trying to steal something from the bear hang, which was weird. But neither of us wanted to actually look out the window in case one of them spotted us. Eventually we heard the car leave, which was a huge relief, but we were too freaked out to actually leave the car until it was light outside and campers nearby would be waking up. When I got out, nothing could have prepared for me what I saw. Above our tent, the men had hung a dead deer that was obviously killed recently because it was leaking blood everywhere on top of our tent. The internal organs were ripped out and its limbs were cut off and laid out in a circle being sold right now, which means that the deer was killed illegally to do whatever it is that those guys did. As soon as we processed what we were looking at, Julia and I freaked and drove away without taking down our camp. Once we were in service, Julia called the police and Forest Service to report what happened while I drove home. Forest Service was nice enough to get our stuff for us, but I don't even want mine back in case there's like some weird curse on it or something. The police are looking into it to charge a fine for killing wild game during the off-season. But as far as I know, what they did to us isn't technically illegal. It's just really creepy. I haven't heard of anything like this before. If you have, let me know. I'm very curious and very spooked. I love camping so much, but after this I don't know if I can camp for a long time. Yeah, that's horrendous. So what I take from that is, they were trying to bait a bear to come and like attack their tent, I guess. Or like they came with more sinister intentions, and then when they saw that they weren't in there, they decided to set like a bear trap. One thing though, I said it was smart about locking the car doors individually. I can't believe they didn't lock the car before they went to sleep. Like, that would be the first thing that I did. And also pretty dumb that the men didn't check the car, but maybe the car was parked like a little bit away from the tent. But yeah, that is very, very creepy. Not nice. Righty then. This next account is titled High School Boyfriend from 15 years ago that ended up in a mental hospital. Let's not meet again. So my senior year of high school, I dated this guy, let's call him Tom. We dated for over a year. The relationship was not good. We were always breaking up and getting back together, fighting a lot. He threatened me a lot. Just overall very, very toxic. His parents also had a very rocky relationship. His dad was an alcoholic and beat his mum most nights. I even witnessed it when I spent the night there on rare occasions. It was scary. Toward the end of senior year, Tom cheated on me at his birthday party. So again, we broke up. Months later we tried to get back together, but realised I just didn't like him anymore, and I called it quits for good. That was 15 years ago, and the last time that I saw him. I've since heard he became an alcoholic just like his dad, became very violent and wound up in a mental hospital. I wasn't sure on the details on this specifically, but I had heard from some people he might be schizophrenic. 9 years ago I met my now husband. We've been married for 4 years and I have a 2-year-old and another on the way. Maybe about a year ago now I got a random text message asking my name, ? I get work calls and texts on my personal phone, so I answered yes. They wrote back, how dare you? I should mention I've had the same number since high school. I didn't respond because I didn't know who it was, and at this point I figured it wasn't something having to do with work. A few minutes later I got another text. It's Tom. How are you? When I tell you, I gasped. I responded, I'm well. I hope you are too. He wrote again, what are you doing? Again I didn't respond. Then a minute later, do you ever think about us? Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we were still together? Do you ever think about getting back together? I sat in silence, rereading these messages, unsure of how to respond. Finally I replied, I'm sorry Tom, but no. I'm married now and wish you the best, but I don't think we should have any form of communication. He responded, okay, sorry. I thought this was weird, but whatever. Maybe the dude is lonely and decided to reach out. Who knows? That was that. Last week, his mother showed up at my family business. I've worked here since high school in different roles. She and his father have gotten a divorce, and she now has a boyfriend she seems happy with. We exchanged pleasantries, and then she asked, "Did you hear about Tom? He was in an institution." I said I'd heard and that I was sorry to hear it. She said he killed several animals, that's why they ended up locking him up. Again, I said I was sorry to hear that. Then she said, "Yeah, but he's out now. Has been for a while. You know, you were always my favourite girlfriend he had. Do you ever still think about him?" I wasn't sure what to say to this. I wanted to say a lady that was in high school, no. Instead I said, "No, I'm married now with a toddler. I don't have much time to think about anything," trying to lighten the mood a little. She then said, "You know, he's not a bad guy. I don't see him that much anymore, but when I do, he still talks about you. He wonders what could have been. Would you ever be open to talking to him?" And that's when I shut things down. I told her it was great to see her, but that option was off the table now and forever. I said I had to get back to work. I walked away and hid in the back until she left. What on earth? This high school relationship was years ago. I want no part of him or his family. I'm just so sincerely hoping he doesn't pop up at my place of work. I have no idea if he's still around the area, but I really hope he isn't. Anyway, bizarre old high school boyfriend. Let's not meet again. Yeah, the top reply says, "Definitely let your husband and workplace know about the situation just to be safe." 100% agree, because it does sound like he's gonna turn up, and it kinda sounds a little bit like he sent the mum himself to put in a good word, I guess. Almost like when you're at high school, when you're a kid, you send your mate over to be like, "Oh yeah, so-and-so fancies you," kind of thing. Except he sent his mum. But also, like, maybe he has sorted out his issues and he's realised that he was only happy when he was with her, so harmless for now. Very weird, yes. Potential to get worse. 100%. Righty. Let's keep moving on. Let's do this one. Now, this one. This is quite long, and it has a violent title, so, you know, I said it was NSFW, but like, violence warning, I guess. So the title of this one is "I Was Stabbed in the Woods." This is the first time I've ever typed this story out. This whole thing happened about 6 years ago and the memory still lives rent-free in my head. I figured making a post might help the healing process a little bit. Time will tell. I'm also not a fluent Redditor, so if this is not the right format or whatever, apologies in advance. Even that first paragraph gave me a feeling of dread, so I'll do my best to translate my thoughts as fluently as possible. I grew up in a small town in Louisiana. I was 21 at the time. There isn't much to do in my hometown. There's the bar life, which is pretty much the only nightlife, aside from the Diddy bar. I said that so posh, Diddy. Which is like a high school reunion in there. And aside from some pool tables and dartboards, there isn't much for a girl to do there that doesn't involve the shaking of one's booty. Nice. I worked at the bowling alley with my best friend. I'll call her Shay. Shay is a sweetie, but I'll be the first to admit that she always had a tendency to think about nothing, and her mouth worked 10 times faster than her brain did. We had a place that we hung out at since high school. It was a place down a wooded trail near the canal, where we would listen to music, drink and smoke weed. I'll admit that things here could get a little sloppy, but for the most part it was sort of our little getaway for the night. We would usually just make a fire, talk shit and get wasted. degenerate piece of human garbage. He was always around in some capacity. He was 26 at the time of this story, which shows that he hung around with younger people. And when I was in high school, he would hang out with our classmates. Rod was a real rough guy. I use this term loosely. He loved flexing on people and fighting. The catch was that he would only get into fights with people he knew he could beat. And if he didn't think he could beat someone, he always made sure to have one of his mum's bearing boyfriends present to back him up. I assume this is why he hung around younger people. Nobody his age took him seriously, or at the very least didn't bother with him. Rod had been banned from the aforementioned titty bar, and trust me when I say if someone ever got banned from that place, you had to be a real loser. He had also served in the army for a brief period, but was discharged. He claimed dishonourable, but there were theories that he was AWOL. Not sure of the validity of any of that. Well, Rod ended up at the spot. I immediately loathed his presence. And pardon my language, but he had some serious big dick energy and he wanted everyone to know it. We were having a few beers, and some of the green stuff was being passed around. Thankfully I didn't partake in smoking this evening, but Rod did break out some of the white powder stuff, and in typical psychopath fashion, he snorted it off a Bowie knife that he always kept strapped to his belt. Shay and her boyfriend had gone off into the woods to do some adult couple stuff. In the process of their intoxication, they completely abandoned me with Rod and the other guy. Rod made some suggestive remarks to me, mostly having to do with my ability to... I think we can all piece it together. The guy that was with us started getting uncomfortable and decided to bail, leaving me with Rod. Trust me, this was never going to be a thing, and I wasn't going to stay with him alone. Gosh, that is such a selfish move by that other guy. Anyway. Finally, as I'm gathering my things to leave, he just asked outright if I wanted to have sex with him. I gave him a no. This led to an argument where he called me some very unflattering things. I don't know how long this lasted, but it was long enough. The next thing I know, he grabs me by the shirt and ripped it, and before I could comprehend anything else, I was laying face down in the dirt, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach and like I was peeing on myself. I looked up at him and realised that he had stabbed me. He had a look of shock on his face, and then a look of panic. He approached me, and to this day I don't know what for. I was able to get my hands on a clump of concrete and smashed him in the face with it, which gave me some time to flee. I was bleeding profusely from my abdomen, and let me tell you, when your body starts shutting down, it was one of the trippiest feelings in the world. I knew I was dying, I knew I wasn't going to make it, and I was expecting at some point to see white lights and dead relatives. As I made my way through the trees, I did see visions of my mother, which I followed, and when I would stop I would hear voices instructing me to keep going. Cheesy, I know, but I didn't get to choose my dopamine hallucinations. In reality, my mother didn't show me anything I didn't know, and the voices were telling me some very common sense things. It just goes to show how your brain works in response to trauma. I eventually made it to a road where, by the grace of God, I ran into a fish and wildlife agent, who to this day I give full credit for saving my life. Rod was arrested after a few days, and he actually passed away while incarcerated. Never had to see the inside of a courtroom, never bothered to figure out how. The trauma didn't end there though. Rod's mother spent months harassing my family over his arrest, and at one point she confronted me and called me a whore. This prompted my older sister to slap her, and my older brother later went to their her and told her she couldn't expect him to stab me, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't hold some animosity over it for a while. I'm doing much better in the past couple of years. I still haven't come to terms with everything, but I'm making progress. I only have flashbacks once or twice a day now, where it used to be much more frequent. I've come to view my scar as a triumph rather than a defeat. This was a big step. It probably took you a few minutes to read this, but it took me over 2 hours to write this. I hope the rest of your week treats you well. I love you all. Wow. That is amazing. Yeah, that is just a crazy story, isn't it? Amazing that she, amazing that she came out of it. Really sad that it led to some more horrible things down the line, but definitely sounds like she's doing better, and hopefully writing it down and getting it out there will have been cathartic, because I can't even begin to imagine going through something like that. Like, it's crazy. I can't believe that other guy selfishly was feeling uncomfortable enough to leave. With him, with Rod, particularly with Rod having the reputation that he has. Like, I think that's really bad, but again, you're not going to anticipate that he would actually, stab her, so, but you still would just stay, and the friend should have stayed as well. Semi-truck driver toying with me late at night, no explanation for it. In December 2015, I was making a north-south cross-country drive through the Midwestern United States. I was a university student at the time, a woman in my young 20s. Driving home for the semester break, I was driving south through Kentucky on I-65 around 11:30 p.m. Still about an hour away from the city where I was going to stop for the night. There were no other cars on the road at all, and I had not seen any for a while. That part of I-65 was a 6-lane divided highway, 3 lanes for each direction, in the area south of Mammoth Cave National Park and just northeast of Bowling Green, Kentucky. I was changing the music on my phone when I noticed an 18-wheeler coming up behind me in the rearview mirror. I stopped what I was doing, clicked off the phone and waited for the truck to pass. The truck got right even with my car, and instead of completing the pass, matched my speed and stayed beside me. Then the driver turned on a spotlight on the side of the truck, which shone directly down the cabin of the car and on my face. I was really confused, as I had never seen a truck do anything like this before. The driver kept the light on my car for what seemed like a very long time, and I was getting creeped out. I kept my gaze straight ahead. I slowed my speed so that the truck would finish passing me. The driver turned off the light and completed the pass, moving from the middle lane to the right lane in front of my car. I was very creeped out by this. Slowed down some more and changed to the leftmost lane to put some space between me and this big rig. As soon as I moved into the leftmost lane, the truck matched my speed again and moved over to the middle lane to come parallel to my car once more. The truck turned on a light again, shining it directly into the passenger side of my car cabin. I had now confirmed that this truck driver was definitely following me and definitely being super creepy. I kept my gaze straight ahead because I felt like looking over would somehow make it worse. The truck turned off the spotlight and pulled in front of my car in the leftmost lane. I decided to move away again, changing lanes behind the truck, back over to the rightmost lane and speeding up. I was probably going right around the speed limit again, 70 to 75 miles per hour. By the time I completed my merge, I saw the truck beginning to shift lanes towards me again and speeding up to match me. Before they could pull up next to me again, I decided it was time to get out of there and floored it. I sped up to 90 miles per hour, the fastest I'd ever driven in my life. And might put maybe a mile of distance between me and the truck before slowing down some. I looked up to the rear view mirror and I will never forget the image. The big orange tractor trailer, illuminated by the street lamps of a highway interchange, absolutely devouring the distance I'd put between us. The truck was charging up behind me at an unbelievable speed. I sped up again, but it didn't matter. The truck caught up to me, pulled beside me, and turned on the spotlight again. I stared straight ahead, keeping my speed, not daring to look over. It was at this time that I decided my only advantage was the manoeuvrability of my small car. I hit the brakes and dropped back behind the 18-wheeler, moving into the middle lane behind the truck. They moved over into the right lane and I moved over behind them. I decided to stay right behind the truck in its blind spot so they could not see me. I saw a sign for an exit and decided this is how I would escape. I waited behind the truck in its blind spot until we came up on the exit. I waited until the last possible moment, and once the truck was beyond the point where the exit split away, I darted out from behind the truck into the exit. Thoroughly shaken, I wondered how far away from the interstate I should go and if the truck would come looking for me. I ended up just pulling into a Wendy's right by the interstate. I parked and got out. I inspected my vehicle, looking to see if there was any damage, thinking maybe the driver was trying to warn me of something wrong with my car. There was nothing wrong with it. I waited at the Wendy's for a little while to make sure the truck was long gone, before getting back on the interstate and continuing to my hotel. After the break, when I drove back to school, I did not use the I-65. Yeah, I really don't know what the game would have been there. I mean, hopefully it was just bored. But even so, terrible thing to do because of the impact it has, but I can't really work out what his game would be, realistically, but fair play to this person because they were very smart and came up with a really good way of manoeuvring away from them, so I'm impressed. This next account is called The Date I Was Too Scared to Leave from Tinder. A bunch of years ago I matched with a guy on Tinder. I was a freshman in college and just got out of a relationship and having fun. I matched with this guy, male 24, we can call him D. He was a little odd, but we had similar interests and went to the same school, so I thought, why not? The red flags started rolling in immediately when I said I would go on a date with him. Of course, the fact that he was much older isn't lost on me as the initial red flag. At this time I didn't have a car. D offers to pick me up but tells me that he is not in town and he would leave his grandmother's funeral early, which was at a minimum 5 hours away, to come and pick me up. He showed up in sweatpants, a wife beater and flip-flops, which struck me as odd because he said he was coming from a funeral. We hadn't made plans, just to get a bite to eat and hang out. Since he'd been out of town, he asked if it was okay if we stopped to pick up his dog. He'd left his dog with a friend. I like dogs, so I was like, no problem. It's dark and we pull up to an apartment complex and he leaves me in the car and comes back with a golden retriever. The dog immediately starts growling at me, which had never happened to me before, so I started feeling a little weird. D doesn't say anything about the dog's temperament. Because we have the dog, he wants to drop him off at his house. This feels logical to me, so I agree. When we pull up to D's house, he asks if I want to come in, not wanting to sit in the car. I do. The moment I walked in, I immediately knew it was the wrong choice. The house house is trashed, there's garbage everywhere. Trash bags full along the front entry, bottles and wrappers on the couch, and just general crap everywhere. D lets me know he has a roommate, but that roommate isn't home. I assume this is to imply the mess isn't his. After brushing the trash off the couch, he asked me if I want to sit and play chess. I had expressed that I was interested in learning, and he seemed more than happy to help me learn. This too was a mistake. D begins explaining the game to me, and it isn't fun first date explaining. He's gotten very serious and is showing me each piece while telling me what it is, what it does, and how it moves. D then begins questioning me over each piece, which most I get wrong. Every time I get one wrong, he yells at me the correct answer and tells me to try again. He got more and more frustrated, and it made me very uncomfortable, so I suggested we pause chess and do something else. D suggests watching a movie, which is fine with me. The idea of us leaving and going to get food seemingly forgotten. D tells me that we can watch a movie in his room, and I oblige. But then he explains that he has to put clean sheets on the bed. I had assumed we were moving to his bedroom because it may have been cleaner. But when we go in, it's not, and there is no TV in his room. He proceeds to put Iron Man 2 onto his phone to have us watch. We watched about 10 minutes of it before things got sexual. I won't tell you strangers the details, but short story, we didn't have sex but other things went down. I will say those things were consensual. After they occurred, I was feeling really odd about the whole situation and told him I didn't want to have sex. D was confused but didn't push it at first. He said fine, and we watched maybe 5 more minutes of the movie before he said he didn't want to watch the movie, and more. He started complaining and asked me why I didn't want to have sex with him, and I simply said I wasn't in the mood anymore. He then began pressuring me to tell him exactly what it was about him that made me feel that way. At this point we had moved from the bedroom back into the dirty living room. You might be thinking, seems like a perfect time to leave, and I thought so too, but this is where things start to get scary. As if he knows I'm thinking about how I'm leaving, he explodes and begins to scream at me. This is a 6-foot-something man screaming in the face of a 5-foot-nothing young girl. Of course I'm internally freaking out, but I'm trying to make sure that I don't piss him off anymore, but also not agreeing to anything. For the next 5 to 10 minutes, D screams at me about why I don't like him, why I don't want him, and continuously asks what's wrong with him and to tell him. I try to placate him as best as possible, saying the old "it's not you, it's me," and no, I don't want to leave. Again, this man is my only ride home, and I'm truthfully not sure exactly where I was. Though I did have my phone and Google Maps, I did not have Uber at the time. D finally calms down when he believes I'm going to stay, then suggests we try playing some video games. I was in full internal freak-out mode, trying to make sure I was playing the part of the interested date, because I was terrified that if he felt I wanted to leave, he would freak out again. We play this game for a while, then out of nowhere D starts getting upset again. He started yelling about why no one likes him, why no one wants to get to know him, and why no one loves him, saying that he has never had a girlfriend and all his dates have been one-night stands. Again, I placate him with a "I don't know, lots of girls are just snooty like that." At this point I'm saying anything and everything he wants to hear. He even starts crying about how his mother never loved him, and telling me very deep dark things about what his mother said to him and treated him. After he finally calms down once more, he gets up and goes to the kitchen to fix us some drinks. Now if you're anyone with a brain, you're thinking absolutely not, which was my exact thought at that moment. I decline his multiple offers for a drink, house instead of alcohol. I wanted water, and of course I declined that too, feigning that I wasn't thirsty. I stayed at his apartment until about 1 AM because I was sitting next to him, terrified to 1. Ask him to take me home, 2. Say how to walk home, or 3. Figure out how to get an Uber. I'd been trying to download Uber on my phone without him noticing, but then it asked for card information, and that was too hard to do without him noticing. So from around 1 AM I yawn very loudly and say, "Oh wow, it's 1 AM. My roommate's going to be so worried about me." I laugh as if my roommate would be stupid to worry, and that I hadn't been watching the clock since he picked me up at 9 PM, and then said, "Oh, I'm so tired, I should get home soon." Again, I was super scared he would freak out, but he didn't explode. He just looked at the clock and said, "Yeah, it was late." But I was not taking any chances, so I said, "I have a great idea. If I get to bed soon, I'd love to have breakfast with you on campus." I was hoping my offer convinced him that I was intending to see him again, and it did. He seemed very happy at the prospect of it and jumped up, walking me out of my house to his car. The drive was excruciatingly long. The ride was completely silent. Neither of us spoke. It was only a 10-minute drive, but I could have sworn he slowed down every time we got to a particularly dark area or underpass. He dropped me off and I smiled and made a good show of being tired, yet excited to see him tomorrow. He offered multiple times to walk me to my door, but I declined every time and said I didn't want to bother him and I'd see him tomorrow. I walked myself to the building, and the moment I got around the corner, I sprinted so fast up the stairs and to my door before he could change his mind and follow me. When I got to my dorm room, I genuinely felt like I had escaped a serial killer. Even now writing it makes my heart race a bit. I never met up with him, but he begged me for multiple days after to meet up with him again. He even asked to pay me $20 an hour to sit near me in the library. I declined obviously and only ever saw him once after at the gym on campus. He didn't see me and I left immediately. I've thought about D occasionally since the date and wondered if all those girls he had one-night stands with had the same experience I did. I still sometimes wonder how many girls there were after me. So D, let's not meet again. This next story is titled, "I Thought I Finally Made a Friend." I, 18 male, met up with an online friend, 19 male, about 2 weeks ago. We met from Facebook. He sent me a message asking if we could be friends, and I thought, sure, why not? I didn't have any friends most of my life, due to parents thinking the friends I had were a bad influence on me. This resulted in me basically having 0 friends since 2019. Because of this, I was really quick to say yes. I absolutely do not post anything on Facebook, and there's no way he would have come across my account from his feed. My account is public, however, so the only way he would have found it is either by going through the friend list of someone that has me added, or through just searching my name directly. We both have about 20 mutual friends, but then again he has around 4,000 people added, so I'm not surprised that we would have a few mutuals. So naturally the first thing I asked him was how he found me or who he is. He replied something like, "You know me," with a hint of, "Don't pretend you don't know." Since we live in the same town, we agreed to go for a motorcycle ride at night. He was cool, we talked about all sorts of things. He did tell me about his childhood, and not gonna lie, it was rough. I'll spare you the details, but he moved to this town to escape his parents. Anyway, one thing led to another, and he randomly confessed to having gay sex with his cousin. I mean, okay, but why do I need to know? Didn't sit right with me. He was 17 at the time, and the cousin he mentioned was at least 25 plus. He initiated it, not the cousin, by the way. He told me in extreme detail that I don't changed the topic, but he was so determined to finish it, so I figured, okay, fine, I'll just let him finish his story and then bring up another topic. Almost right after that, he started telling me a bit how he manipulated his drug addict older brother into having sex with him. Like, what the fuck, dude? Extreme drug addicts like him would do anything to get that money to buy drugs, and he took that chance because he found his brother attractive. Right after that, he told me about doing it with his classmate, as expected, with extreme detail. Oh god, give me a break. I swear he was talking about it for more than an hour. We were out for about 3 hours, so I needed to use the bathroom. I told him and he said his apartment is nearby. We went there so I could use the bathroom, and I also wanted to check out his apartment. I got in his room, but he didn't turn on the light for about 30 seconds. I asked him to turn on the lights. He immediately changed the topic. I asked again, and he finally turned it on. After I finished using the bathroom, I came out to the lights off again. It was 2 AM at that point, so I asked him to drop me off. I don't know the way around the area, so I had to rely on him. His tone immediately changed. In a half-moan kind of tone, he said, "Are you leaving already?" and put his hand over my arm. That sent a chill down my spine, but I kept my cool and told him that it's 2 AM, so I gotta go to sleep. Then I suddenly remembered something he said while he was telling the story about his brother. I like it dark when I do things like this. I knew what his intentions were. I knew that was on his mind. At that moment I got a gut feeling to get out of there ASAP. Fortunately, he agreed to drop me off. I say fortunately because he's bigger than me and he easily could have prevented me from going if I wanted to. After dropping me off, he sent several messages saying I'm cute and he was resisting the urge to hug me all that time. It's been 2 weeks since then and he has asked me to meet up several times already. What does he expect after all that? Nope. Never meeting again. Goodness gracious. Right, and the final story of this video is titled Escaped a Possible Subway Shooting / Hostage Situation. Hey all, so I just got back from a trip to New York City. I go there multiple times a year, as I have family and a handful of close friends that live there. Been meaning to post this since it happened a couple nights ago, but I wanted to make sure I had the time to sit down and regather all the details correctly. I'm sure we've all heard crazy subway stories at one point or another, but I never thought I would end up in one this terrifying. So I was heading back to my hotel from a friend's house at about 3 AM the other night. Friend lives deep in Brooklyn. My hotel was in Manhattan. So if you know the city, that's about a 30 to 45 minute long train ride, give or take. My train finally arrived and I was happy to be headed home. I was exhausted and it was late. My trip had been going unexpectedly well up until this point, so I had faith I'd be able to get home with no worries, especially since the trains and streets were basically empty at this hour. The train was brand new and had just been cleaned. Hell, it even smelled like a new car and still had fresh mop water on the floor. There was about 3 other people on my train all minding their own business. So far, so good. About 2 stops into the train ride, a man that looked like he was in his late 20s stumbled into the train car mid-ride through the connecting doors of the cars. He had a Nike ski mask, which usually isn't a good sign on a nice 70-degree night in general context, but I'm not one to judge by appearance. Plus I know the shiesty mask is sort of a trend nowadays, so I didn't think too much of it at first. He sort of hobbled in and when he was clutching his stomach, almost as if he was concealing something or hiding a wound. His eyes were bloodshot red, and at first I thought it was because he was high or something. He immediately hobbled into the nearest corner and sort of sulked into it, facing the corner until the next stop. He then ran out of the closest door and erupted into the most painful crying I've ever heard. He was just screaming, moaning and crying, all while stumble running alongside the stop train on the platform, still clutching his stomach, screaming things like "why" and gasping through his tears. Keeping in mind I'm sitting in the middle of the train, facing away from the side he got off, so I'm kind of breaking my neck behind me as he's running behind me to watch what's going on. He then ran back inside the same car, through the door on the opposite side of the car now. He was on my right before, now he's on my left. There is no one in between me and him, now since everyone else was closer to the right side. He did the sulking while facing into the corner thing on the other side of the car now, but this time he kept crying and yelling things like "why?" Again, because he was crying so hysterically that it was hard to make out a lot of what he was saying. From the certain words I gathered though, I'm almost positive that a very close friend of his had just gotten killed or something. It's the only thing that would explain the way he was acting and the things he was saying. Plus he was suited up like he had just come back from a street mission gone bad or something. At this point everyone on the train was frantically flicking their eyes over to him every few seconds. You could tell they were panicked but not trying to cause a scene about it or rile him up even more. I was getting a little sussed out myself, but I had seen/heard about worse on the subway, and if someone he knew had really just died, then I honestly felt horrible for the guy before anything else. But then, the entire situation escalated to a point that I had only seen in movies or crime shows until now. The man stayed in this corner, crying, screaming and muttering things to himself for another 3 minutes or so, all while still clutching his stomach as if he was concealing something. I had definitely seen a black object in his hands by this point, but I couldn't tell if it was big enough to be a gun or not. After I saw this, I tried not to take my eyes off him for too long at a time, since I was the closest person to him, but I also didn't want to stare. By this point he was starting to say concerning things like "someone's got to pay for this," and then he would just repeat it louder and louder, and then he burst into a dialogue that made my heart fucking drop. Keep in mind he's still facing the corner, hunched over clutching his item. Well, this is in American. A lot of this is written. So bear with me. All you motherfuckers sitting on this train right now, y'all can feel me tonight. You hear me? Y'all can feel me tonight. And y'all gonna fucking hate it too. Oh my god, y'all gonna fucking hate this. Y'all gonna hate me. You're welcome. He kept getting louder and louder as he was saying this, to the point where he was basically screaming by the last part. I don't know what he said after that, because as soon as that train stopped next, I fucking bolted. He was screaming shit at me as I got off, but I couldn't hear it, and I definitely wasn't trying to turn back. I ran back up to the nearest street exit, chain smoked a couple of cigarettes, and waited 20 minutes for the next train to come. I've seen enough in my life to know that this wasn't a situation I was willing to gamble with at all. I prayed the last 3 people on that train got home safe and nothing happened. I briefly searched Twitter and the news the next day for any possible info I could find, but I didn't see anything. But who even knows what's worth a headline to them down there anymore? So to the man in the subway at 3 AM, I pray you find the solace you need and heal from whatever trauma you're going through, but please, let's not ever meet again. And that, my friends, is that a really some very disturbing ones, some not so disturbing but still good to read, so I really hope you did enjoy this video. Hopefully you found it relaxing and scary.